an inside look at primetime advertising in the television industry, up next on Carpe Diem. Hello, and welcome to Carpe Diem. I'm Rob Rowan. Commercial advertising is what makes the television industry go round. With channels like HBO earning money through subscription fees, other television networks must make rooms in their programmings for commercials. But just what goes into developing these advertisements? Here to talk to me about the inner workings of the primetime advertising is Cardie Mortimer. Cardie began his career at ABC as a junior analyst of sports, daytime news, and late night. He worked his way up through the company and eventually became executive director of ABC TV primetime sales, planning, and sales administration. After 27 years, he retired from ABC, and it is my honor to have him here, and it's an honor to have him on the show.
Hey, thank you very much, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be at Montclair State University.
Yeah. So right here, Executive Director of ABC Primetime Sales, Planning, and Sales Administration.
That's correct.
Other than being a mouthful, what exactly did that job entail?
That's very good. It was a mouthful, believe me. And my wife still doesn't know after 35 years of being married what I did, but as Executive Director of the Finance and Programming sections of ABC, within any show that's on primetime television, for that matter, daytime, weekend, late night, they're filled with something that we all love and hate, and that's commercials. And with commercials, we associate revenue with those commercials. I was in charge of the revenue planning portion of that. For every single commercial that came in, we had to account for it, just like at a grocery store. We had the cart, and in come the commercials, and we accounted for every single penny, up to $4.6 billion. The funny part about that is I failed accounting in college, and I went on to handle billions of dollars of revenue to the dime.
So very interesting. And who did you report to? Was it Michael Eisner back then?
It was very good. It was Michael Eisner. Bob Iger was when I was there, was the president of entertainment. He is now, of course, the president of the whole company. I reported to the senior vice president. His name was John Abatista. He was the senior vice president of all of sales service. You're probably familiar a little bit, having your background with WABC. But sales service schedules all of the commercials within the programs from early morning till TV goes off at night at 11 o'clock. Remember, primetime television ends at 11 o'clock. So my boss was a senior vice president. He reported directly to the president of sales and marketing.
And about what percentage of TV stations' revenue comes for advertisements? Are there any other revenue streams that TV networks have?
With revenue to the company from commercials, probably, I'm going to say, and somebody's going to correct me on this, I'm going to say probably 80% of all network revenues come from commercial advertising. It may be a higher number than that. Within that, you also have syndication, the shows that you see on Channel 5, Channel 9. The other night I was watching, old shows, reruns from the 60s. That's syndication, and the company networks who originally aired those and who own those shows make money, and that's called syndication. Of course, the biggest thing is ABC is Disney. We're owned by the Walt Disney Company, so you're working for the big mouse too, and our checks are signed by the big mouse, which is kind of funny because I didn't know mice could write, but what can you do? But Disney is a huge, huge company. And do you know that ABC only is a small part of Disney?
Oh, really?
It's only a small part. It only generates, I don't want to get into percentages here, but I remember it being somewhere like 20%, something of total Disney revenues is ABC. And within ABC, you also have ESPN. You have, a sports network that's second to none, and that's cable. That's paid advertising as well. So.
And over the past recent years, a new trend has come up in retransmission fees, which are similar to subscriber fees in cable, in which cable companies pay the channels directly.
Correct.
Did you handle any money from that at all?
No, sir. No, I did not. I did not.
And the subscriber fees, of course, have become a very big revenue stream for cable networks. Can you talk about that a little bit in terms of ESPN?
I could talk about it as far as ESPN, but I think let's take a step back when I started at ABC in 1984, because you had mentioned that I started as a junior analyst. This morning at breakfast, I was talking to one of the professors that works here at MSU, who is responsible for me even being here. His name is Larry Weiner. And we were talking about how in the 1980s, there was no such thing as a computer. There was no such thing as Wikipedia. There was no such thing as going online, let alone what we see today, what we have today. It's been an amazing transformation. In the 80s, when I was growing up through, going through all of the years at ABC, all of a sudden you would come into work and there'd be a new computer at my desk. And I'd said, wait a minute, I just learned how to go online with this other computer. Say, well, you got a new one. You got to learn this. You have to learn this Microsoft. You have to do this. And every single day it was something different. Well, as far as there was no ESPN back then, by the way. ESPN didn't come in until late in the 80s. It was ABC Sports, and as you know, I worked for ABC Sports at that time when we did the Olympics. ABC had the Olympics. So there was no such thing. There was no such thing as ESPN. There was no such thing as HBO. There was no such thing as Showtime, Cinemax, Netflix. Please help me, Rob. Hulu.
Hulu, HBO Go.
HBO Go, Go.com for ABC. That's, I think we just named 9 just right off the bat. There was no such thing. So there were no revenues associated with that coming into the network whatsoever. Now, having said that, what does all of that cable do to a network? Well, network is free television. WABC TV, we can turn on by going to a store, buying a television, plugging it in, and we're going to get channels 2, 4, 7, 9, 11, 13, which is WNET, I believe, And chances are our houses are hooked up to cable. But did you know that millions, tens of millions, not hundreds of millions, but tens of millions of households are still not hooked up to cable in the United States? So when we say that there are 200 million people that live in the United States, only 92 million or 93 million or 96 million, whatever the number is now, they call it the universe, have cable television or hooked up to Comcast or,
Verizon Fios.
Verizon Fios, Warner Brothers, right?
Time Warner,
Time Warner, you got it. So having said that, look what cable, look what all of this online stuff has done to a network. It has taken audiences away. Doesn't mean that it's taken advertisers away, because advertisers still like the reach that network television has. We can reach 92 million people. You got to have cable to reach even a quarter of that. Not everybody has HBO. Not everybody has Cinemax. Not everybody has, the shows that we're privileged to watch at home.
Right, and in terms with ABC, it's quite different from any cable in terms of having affiliates. And can you just talk about the way that worked a little bit? Like, I know working at ABC, we have what's called a network break and then a local break. Can you talk about that a little bit?
You're talking about from the commercial standpoint?
Correct.
Within any particular show, let's take one of the shows that I worked on, Lost, when we had, people remember Lost, the show. We had roughly 20 network commercials within that. That means that the entire country is going to see those 20 commercials. So they're national brands. Let's say Chevrolet, all the beer companies, all of the car companies, et cetera, just off the top of my head. Within that framework, the network gives back to the affiliates. The affiliates would be a WABC TV. It would be a WLA, whatever it is out in California. In California, ABC is channel 5, and for me, in New York, it's channel 7. So it's all different channels across the country is the affiliate. So within those pods, within those commercial pods, we give back to the local stations, what they call the owned and operated stations. And within that, they are allowed, I believe it's 10 commercials within that. So within the entire scope of loss, you'll see 20 network commercials, you'll see 10 local commercials.
And of course, you get the revenue from all those network commercials.
From the network commercials, and that's what I did. That's exactly what the job that we had. We had to report on all of the monies that were coming in. And when you're working for a large company like that, and you're budgeting, and you're telling your stockholders, hey, we're having a great year, our ratings are up, we're knocking the socks off television, we're beating NBC, we're beating CBS, we're beating Fox. Doesn't say that we're beating people looking up things on Netflix. Doesn't say that we're beating people sitting down at a computer and working at a computer and all the things that we can do on a computer now. Not to mention watch television shows on a computer. So.
And you just briefly touched on Netflix. Netflix, I believe last year had upwards of $200 million in net profits. And that's just right off the top. How does that compare to a network like ABC, NBC, CBS?
Well, primetime sales for a network would be in the billions just for primetime. So again, millions of dollars for Netflix. We're talking billions of dollars for a network.
Right.
Across all day parts, of course, too.
Right, and we're noticing a lot of segmentation of the market right now in terms of television. Has that, have you noticed a great effect on the advertising dollars coming in, or as you said, people still do like how, network TV can reach a broad audience?
I'm sorry, say the question again.
Yeah, the segmentation of the audience, has it cut into your revenue stream at all?
I retired 4 years ago from ABC after a 27-year career there. And what we were seeing is that the research department would come in, and our research department, I think, is one of the most important departments in any network at any time. They tell us what the ratings they feel are really going to be, where we're going to finish up, how we're going to do against the competition. But within all of their data and all the things that they print out, and you should have seen my desk at times, Rob. I had data from research this high on my desk, and I had to go through every single page and report on that to the people, within the company, within my department, within the research department, within our department, within primetime television, and be able to go in and say, hey, listen, our rating just went from, our overall primetime rating went from a 3.1 adult 18 to 49 rating down to a 2.6, because we had to be real. What's bringing down our rating? Is it the programming? Is our programming that bad? Is it everything we're putting on bad? No, everything we're putting on is good. It's just that there are just so many choices now. There are so many things that we can sit down, think about yourself, sitting down at a computer, sitting down at a TV. Remember I said we had 2, 4, 7, 9, 11? Mm-hmm. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but some TVs have 500 channels.
Yeah, correct.
Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, 500 is probably a low number.
Yeah, in terms of just digital cable now, you see all these different channels pop up out of nowhere.
I remember asking my son a few years ago, Charlie was watching television. I said, Charlie, what are you watching? He said, it's channel 881, Dad. I said, channel 881? What's on channel 881? He goes, oh, it's my favorite movie. They're playing an old movie that I loved, and I want to see it again. And I said, what channel is that? He goes, I have no idea. He said, I just saw the name of the movie on the TV guide, and I chimed in. Now, how does a network govern that? How can Nielsen ratings, the Nielsen company that does all of the ratings, how can they figure that out? It's a tough ball game. It's a tough ball game for advertisers to come in and say, listen, our ratings are going down because the competition, not just on the networks, but in cable, computer, online, all of these different choices are affecting the network ratings.
And we recently had Sweeps Week in terms of, when they really pay attention to the ratings. Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yes. Sweeps Week is what you're talking about. There is one in November and there's one in May. Those are the two big times that we put on the newest programming, the finales. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, the finales of your favorite shows. In fact, I saw the finale the other night of one of my favorite shows. It was very good. Now, it's the finale, like Dancing with the Stars. Dancing with the Stars was a show that I was very much involved in. My wife and I, in fact, went to the studio in California, and we actually saw it taped. We had the time of our lives. That was like a real Disney adventure. Now, Dancing with the Stars just had its finale 2 weeks ago, right? In November. But Dancing with the Stars will be back come April and have April and May, and those are what they call the sweeps weeks. So sweeps weeks really is referring to the newest kind of programming that we have, the new shows. There are no repeats during that time. We're really gearing up. We really advertise it for the audiences. We say, hey, Dancing with the Stars finale, here's the date, but before that, you got to watch the 10 shows before that, to get into the show. And of course, we hope at that time we also have ratings, estimated ratings. Remember, I was talking about that from the research department, and the research department will give those a little bump. And instead of maybe a 3.6, or if the show is tracking, let's say at a 3.5 or a 3.6, maybe the finale will do a 4.5, adult 18 to 49 rating. So we'll put that into our system. So now our system has all of the research estimates in it, so that the advertisers, we can tell the advertisers, you're getting a bang for your buck.
And can you just go into the process of selling advertisements or selling ad space to advertisers?
The selling of it comes from the salesmen themselves. I was never a salesman at ABC, thank God, because their job is thankless. It starts with each network having what they call an upfront season. The upfront is where anything and everything goes with the new programming. It starts in June, let's say. Let me just back up 1 second. The new schedule for all the networks are announced in May. Come June, there's an upfront season, and we begin to sell all of the advertising for all of the shows for the entire year. Okay? Mm-hmm. Within that framework, we may sell out 80% of the inventory for the entire year, which leaves 20% for what they call a scatter marketplace. So there's only two different kinds of selling in the advertising world in the network: upfront and scatter. Within that, millions, billions of dollars are generated. You have an upfront for prime time, you have an upfront for news, you have an upfront for daytime, and I can't speak of sports because sports is all year round. So the ESPN is selling all year. Sports is kind of new, new programming, so they'll sell accordingly. Right. But that's how we sell it.
And switching gears now, it came to my attention that your father was big in the television industry.
Yes, he was.
Could you talk about him a little bit, what his career was?
Absolutely. My dad passed away in February of this year, God bless. Believe it or not, he was one of the original founders of ABC Television. Yeah. Yes, he was the first program director there, and he worked with a man named Roone Arledge, who literally is the father of television as we know it. He invented slow motion replay for Monday Night Football. And my dad started his career in live television as a director for such shows as Studio One, Playhouse 90, and others. Went on to become one of the leading executives in the entire country for a company called William Esty, which was an advertising firm. But back then, what the advertising firms did was they would buy shows for the network. That doesn't happen so much today. It still happens a little bit where an advertiser will come in with a show and say, we're delivering you a show and we're paying for it, and here's the fee. We call that a time only now. But back then, it was commonplace. So my father bought shows such as F Troop, Wagon Train, the Beverly Hillbillies, the Munsters, the Carol Burnett Show. I could go on and on and on. He had a terrific, terrific career and was renowned in his, as a matter of fact, wherever I went at ABC, I was always Charlie Mortimer's son. Are you Charlie Mortimer's son? I said, yeah, I sure am, proudly. They said, don't worry about it, you'll never be what your father was. I said, well, I'm not trying to be what my father was, I'm just trying to be what I am. But he was one of a kind.
Right, and we kind of glossed over your career just from, your early workings with daytime TV and sports and all that,
Yep.
and to your executive position. Can you kind of talk about your career path, how you went from your starting job to where you ended up at the end?
It's funny. I actually worked for my dad in production for a company called Westfall Productions. We did movies such as Death Be Not Proud, The Hideaways with Ingrid Bergman. We did a trilogy of network shows for NBC, animated specials, King of the Beast, Noah's Animals, Last of the Red Hot Dragons. So grew up in the industry. There's just no getting around it. I grew up in the theater and the production industry from day one. It was Dad. It wasn't all about my dad, it's just that I loved following his coattails. And as it would happen, it got to a point where I didn't want to work for the family company anymore. And I thought I was really worth something out in the real market. I really thought I was worth a lot more money than I started. As a matter of fact, I started at so little money you had to look up to see down. That's how much money I was making. And I started my career, I went back to my father and I said, Dad, there's an opening at a company called ABC, in New York, as a junior analyst of the revenue department. My father stood up and he goes, you take that. You take that job because that's the lowest you can go and you're going to grow from that job. Well, when you're just married, I was married in 1980 and this is 1984, it wasn't such a hot commodity. It wasn't such a hot thing. It was like, why do I have to start at a job at such small revenue and start my career all over again? Where am I going to go with this? And I had never worked for a large corporation in my entire life. It was scary. It was very, very scary. I think about the students here, not only at Montclair State University that I talked to just a couple of weeks ago, had the time of my life, and they asked so many wonderful questions, and are there jobs available? Are there things? And I tell every one of them, do what I did. You start small and you grow and you find the niche and you find the staircase. And that's what I did. And within ABC, I ended up getting promoted 8 times through the years. And I survived a lot of purges too. Remember, when I first worked for ABC, it was Paramount, owned by Paramount Television, Paramount Pictures. Then we were bought by a company called Capital Cities ABC. So it was ABC Capital Cities. And then in comes Michael Eisner and Disney. And nobody knew what was going on. I came out of a subway system. I took the subway up from 66th Street from the Port Authority, and people were wearing the Disney ears on their head, the helmet or whatever that thing is with the ears. And I turned to one of my friends and I said, what are people wearing Disney ears for? Because I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. We walked in, there is nothing but Disney mania. There's Donald Duck standing there. I'm now shaking hands with Donald Duck in my office, right where you are at WABC, right there, literally, right on the sidewalk. And I look up, and there's a huge sign, and it says, ABC TV is now owned by the Walt Disney Corporation. And I'm like, holy moly, what's going to be next? We just got used to capital cities. Now we got to get used to Walt Disney. And you talk about changes in the revenue, in the programming, in prime time, and 2 months later, what's on TV? The Wonderful World of Disney. On Sunday nights from 7 to 9 o'clock was, one of the shows. So there you go. There you have it.
And you've noticed that with a lot of other companies, NBC, of course, Universal, and now they're owned by Comcast, and
right.
Just CBS, the big corporation it is with Paramount and Viacom, and also ABC with Disney. Do you feel that was kind of a necessity in terms of the TV industry, or what really caused these gigantic media companies to want to buy their own channels like that?
You've asked a $100,000 question. You really did. And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know what was in the minds of Michael Eisner and our chairman of the board at that time when they shook hands and made, a billions and $billion takeover deal. Whatever it was, $40 billion. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was some unbelievable amount. Again, network television reaches a much larger audience than computers, than Netflix. You're saying $200 million for Netflix. $200 million is a drop in the bucket for ABC. So, owning a network gives you that ability to reach to reach that many more people and to be able to also do other things. You know, ABC bought Marvel, right? The comic strip company, and they're doing all sorts of. Bob Iger is a genius, absolute genius, and he bought all of these different, these different companies within the company. I can't even keep up with it. I just read ABC just bought another company, and don't forget, within ABC you have Buena Vista Television, you have ABC Family. That's what I watched last night. Did you hear that channel's changing names to Freeform TV?
Yeah, I did see that.
Did you see that?
Yes.
Who came up with that? Freeform. I don't know. That doesn't hit me. I like ABC Family, don't you?
Yeah, it has a nicer ring to it.
It's just got a nicer ring to it, Rob. So.
Exactly. And all these other channels now with the digital TV, the switch from analog to DTV, you notice a lot of channels. ABC also has the Live Well network underneath it, and I believe another channel. What can you talk about that change a little bit?
I really can't, only because a lot of this has taken place. A lot of this, and I don't mean to not answer the question, a lot of stuff has taken place since I left. Again, ABC, Disney, this big company, Bob Iger, chairman of the board, they're buying things left and right. As far as digital TV is concerned, I don't know enough about it to comment on it.
Right, and just going forward, do you feel that we've seen a lot of cord cutters? And do you feel that network TV is here to stay in terms of the cord cutters? We only have a brief amount of time left.
I think that ABC, CBS, NBC will be here for a long time to come. I really do. I see that. I don't feel sorry for them, but I know it's going to be a difficult road to hoe as their ratings decrease a little bit, as from what we talked about, to get the same revenues generated out there in the upfront and the scatter marketplace to pay, to be competitive and so on. But I think that the networks are going to survive.
Right. Well, Cardie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It's been an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you would like more information about this or any other episode of Carpe Diem, you can write to us at the email address on your screen, carpediem@mail.montclair.edu, or call us at 973-655-5158. Until next time, I'm Rob Rowan, and thank you very much for watching.